Here in a second, Mark Houck is going to be jumping on with us to get the latest information on what life post FBI raid is like. So we're waiting for him. I was with Mark Houck. My sons, two of my sons and I went to Arizona for the Into the Wild weekend. And we were on mission trip out there serving on the team. And then the very week he returns, the Friday after we were together, he is raided by a bunch of officers. We still don't know how many. But there was, 15 or so officers that showed up at his door, even though he had been, through his attorney, volunteered himself to turn himself in months prior. Let's start with the day of. What was that like for you and for your family?
So the day of the raid was September 23rd, and it was surreal, of course. It was unexpected. I woke up about 6:30 because we had co-op that day as a homeschool family. And I came down to put a quiche in the oven to get my kids off to a decent start with a little bit in their bellies. So it was dark at that time. We didn't have the daylight savings. So I gently woke my wife to get her going. And then I came downstairs and, started to get things prepared for them. Well, at about 7 a.m., someone was outside my house. Did not know. I could not see anything. They started ringing the doorbell really loud, like over and over again. Not just one time ring, but just ding, 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 right, real loud. And I'm like, geez, this isn't a good way to wake up children. But I went to the door and they banged on the door and they just said, "Open up." And I said, "Who is it?" And I didn't know, who does that to somebody, right? So I couldn't see anything. And the gentleman replied, "Open up, FBI," and he kept banging on the door. And I said, "Okay, stay calm. I have 7 children in this house. I'm going to open the door." I had my hands, I was showing them my hands. And I said, "Stay calm, please. I have 7 children in this house." So as I opened the door, I saw that my entire front yard was filled with about 15 marked and unmarked units. Now, they were surrounding my home and on my front yard. And then I had about 7 heavily armored agents on my front door, FBI agents with heavily armored vests, long guns, M16s they were, pointed at me. And then I saw ballistic shields, ballistic helmets, and a battering ram, and a bunch of state troopers as well. So I was shocked. At this point, I guess my wife is coming down, but I came out and I just said, "What are you doing here?" Like, I had no clue that this was going to happen, no indication. About a month prior, my attorney had called and said, "Have you heard anything from the assistant U.S. attorney?" I said, "No." He said, I told her we would show up if they wanted us to come down for anything. You have no case, but we'll come down. No need to bring an agent out to the house or anything. Well, at this point, people were in the back of my house. Like, they were surrounding my home. My little daughter's walking around pacing the house. She's nervous as all get out. They're screaming. The kids are screaming. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "You know why we're here." I said, I don't know why you're here." And they said, "Well, we're here to arrest you." And I said, "I know why you're here. You're here because I rescue babies." It started to come to my head. And then I looked at them, and then my wife came down and said, "Do you have a warrant?" And they said, "Well, we're taking him with or without a warrant." At that point, I knew things weren't going to go well, but my kids were screaming, as I said. I said, "Well, okay, whatever's got to happen needs to happen, but can I get dressed?" Because I was just wearing shorts and a T-shirt. It was cold, and they said, "No." I said, "Can I brush my teeth?" They said, "No." I said, "Can I put some deodorant on?" They said, "No." I said, "Can I get a sweatshirt?" "Yeah, you can get a sweatshirt." And then I said, "Can I get my rosary?" And they allowed me to have my rosary. And that's it. I was out of that property within 15 minutes. No way able to really say goodbye to my children, not knowing how long I was going to go away, not knowing anything. They didn't explain anything to me. So that was pretty much the morning. And then I spent 6 hours at the federal building, shackled with my waist and shackled in my feet and my chained to a table.
Wow.
And I tell you, Joe, it was the closest I've ever been to Jesus in my entire life. I was at the foot of Calvary, and I could feel the feathers of my guardian angel. It was a beautiful, peaceful experience. And I can get into more of that if you want, but did that answer give you an idea of the day?
Yeah, that's pretty. That's probably the most intense description of that event that I've encountered so far. In looking at the articles that have been written and the conversations that have been had, that is very intense. I can't imagine how difficult that's been for your wife and your children. How are they doing?
Well, thanks for asking. Well, we're a homeschool family, so we love Jesus, and we know God's grace is sufficient. Not that people aren't homeschooled don't love Jesus, but you know what I'm saying. We fall on our knees to thank Him for the grace to serve Him and to be persecuted in this way. The little ones don't really understand that. The older ones, well, maybe a little bit more. We've done some counseling with them. We've had some prayer and healing with them, services done with them. We've had mass at our home, reclaimed our home since then. We've had multiple priests. We had Cardinal Gerhard Mueller come to our home, who was in Mexico City at the time.
Amazing.
Former prefect of the Doctrine of the Faith called and said, can I come out to the home? And he denounced it. He condemned it on our property. What a brilliant man. What a beautiful man. Bishop Strickland, one of your great bishops, reached out to me within days. So we felt the love of the church. We felt the love of the world. The whole world is praying for us. Africa is praying for us. We had a whole village in Uganda say, we're praying for you as signs.
Wow.
Mother Teresa's nuns in Calcutta have us placed on her crypt, our family, and petitions to pray for us. Europe's praying for us, friends in Europe, and of course Canada and the United States, all over the United States. So we feel that love and support. The kids are going to continually be traumatized by it in their own little way as things trigger them. Maybe the next time they see a police officer, it might trigger something. They kind of play act it a little bit, which kind of scares me. They'll bang on the door and say, open up, FBI, to the sister, because they're not opening the door. That's kind of a little just something I cannot imagine. But one daughter said, I'm afraid of Fridays. So we're just trying to work through it one day at a time and just let Dad be as present as possible to them.
I'm grateful that it didn't turn out worse in the state of Texas. If someone bangs on the door and rings the doorbell repeatedly at that time of the morning, it doesn't say first, hey, federal authorities outside. They don't say that first. In Texas, we show up with a gun to the door to figure out who's banging on our door. That could have gone infinitely worse.
It was completely reckless. Whoever authorized it, first of all, I'd have to be a drug lord of some sort to get that kind of arsenal at my home, or Osama bin Laden, something like that. But it was completely reckless. It's amazing someone didn't get shot that morning. What if my little ones were running through and grabbed an airsoft gun and thought this might be interesting to show off the guns in the home, that were toy guns? You know what I mean, Joe? It could have gone any way. Thanks be to God, it was calm. There's peace.
So we're down to a couple minutes left with Mark Houck from the Kingsmen. What's the status? What can you tell us about where you're at now?
Sure. Well, we're pending trial, January 24th. There's a jury trial in Philadelphia. It's just kind of a holding pattern. The attorneys are, interviewing people and so forth. And I just continue to do the work that I'm called to. I really can't obviously talk about the case because that, would be imprudent. But suffice it to say, they have no case. Suffice it to say that we're just praying for a good outcome. But we don't know these things. It's an earthly court. It's not the heavenly court. So we don't know how things are going to go. But we trust in God's goodness. But we're just waiting January 24th.
The charges are pretty significant. They are trying to get you to, I think it's like an 11-year sentence hanging over your head. What are you facing?
Yeah, so it's a 10-year charge with a federal felony FACE Act violation, which is freedom to access to clinic entrances, which Bill Clinton used in the 1990s against pro-lifers. Mm-hmm. There's no case there because I wasn't even near the entrance to the facility, nor was I even with anybody coming out of the facility that I would be preventing. So there's that, and then there's an additional year simple assault with intent to harm that adds the 11, and that was because there was an altercation altercation because of someone who was harassing my son, who was from the building. And then there's a $350,000 fine attached to both those. Total of $350,000. So,
Wow.
yeah, we don't know how it's going to go.
Well, we continue to pray for you and your family, Mark, and pray for a great outcome. I think the upside is there's been a tremendous amount of attention brought to the Kingsmen, which you can find linked up at thekingsmen.org. That's thekingsmen.org. Mark Houck, God bless you. Thanks for joining us this morning.